Years ago, when I had a K through 8 school, the 7th grade teacher came to me distraught. There were 8 girls in her classroom who could do nothing but argue and backbite and tattle on each other. And she had tried everything. She had tried team building exercises, one after another. She had tried contacting the parents, and that did no good at all, because all the parents did was argue, backbite, and complain about the other parents. The girls were constantly disrupting the classroom, and now in 7th grade, the puberty had struck. They were enlisting the boys into their armies to battle against one another. So the teacher decreed that they would be spending every lunch recess with me until they worked this out. And I began to look at another job with the Department of Corrections. But after weeks of talking to these girls during their lunch recess, literally weeks, the root of the problem finally came to light. Remember, this is in 7th grade. In 2nd grade, popular girl A had seen that popular girl B had tuna salad for lunch with pickles in it. And she had laughed uproariously because she had never heard of anyone putting pickles in tuna salad. The battle lines were drawn. Soldiers were recruited. And the feud began in earnest. And the reason it took so many weeks to uncover the problem is because by 7th grade, they had forgotten why they hated each other. But it was all over the pickles in the tuna salad. Human beings resist change, and we love the status quo. Even when we forget what we're mad about, or even if we remember but it doesn't matter anymore, we tend to stay angry. And anger is like a snowball running downhill. And altercation after altercation cause that snowball to grow until it becomes a deadly avalanche. But we resent anyone who tries to stop our avalanche. How dare you interfere in our hatred and anger? Why are we like that? I think it's because we are bathed in cheap grace, in a cheap grace world. We are too often like those Pharisees to whom Jesus was speaking in the gospel for today. They had made all the appropriate sacrifices, they had given the prescribed offerings, and after all, by golly, they were God's chosen people. How dare this rabbi come along and tell them that they are tenant farmers from whom the vineyard would be taken? And of course, before you cheer, remember that we too are those Pharisees. The parable is a warning to us as well, because we too can all too easily become bathed in that cheap grace. And remember, Wednesday night I said cheap grace is a grace that is predisposed. I have grace. I'm one of God's elect. So now I can do whatever I want and live however I want. I am Teflon, and sin just runs off of me. That's not real grace. Real grace is costly. Real grace is the realization that we are the ones to whom the vineyard was given after the evil tenants were expelled. And the last thing we want to do in this world is start acting just like them. Because this parable, folks, is not just some nice hypothetical story. This parable is the story of Jesus, told by Jesus. Jesus came to this world and became us. God became man. God entered the vineyard on our behalf. God allowed himself to be whipped and beaten on our behalf. God allowed himself to be crucified on our behalf. God allowed himself to be damned to hell on our behalf. And he did all of that not because we deserved one bit of it, but because he decided that he wanted us to live eternally with him. God gave everything for us. And Jesus continues coming to us. The baptismal waters continue flowing over us and refreshing us. He enters us through the bread and the wine. And there is no more intimate moment in your life than when the God of the universe enters into your body through your mouths. He is a very real God and a very physical God. There's nothing mystical or magical or symbolic here. The real body and blood of Jesus Christ flow into you so that you are never, ever alone in this vineyard. And in light of all of that, what is our response? Well, the wicked tenants beat the son and killed him, hoping to take the vineyard for themselves. What about you? What is your response to the owner of the vineyard when he comes to you, asking you for the first fruits to which he is entitled? Are you like Peter, who dropped his nets and walked away from everything to follow Christ? Are you like Levi, who locked the door of the tax booth, tossed the key over his shoulder, and walked away from everything to follow Christ? Or are you the rich young ruler who went away sad because he had great wealth in this world? The wicked tenants wanted to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted to keep all the fruit for themselves in the vineyard and be servant to no one. What about you? Jesus tells us that he's the capstone, the cornerstone. If you follow him, you will fall upon him. And when you fall upon him, you will be broken. The other option is that he will fall upon you and you'll be crushed. When you respond to grace by following, you will always be broken. And that's because following Jesus in this world is not consistent with this world. To live as a follower of Christ means giving up the measurements and the goals of this world. You are broken when you fall upon this cornerstone. But being broken, folks, is infinitely better than being crushed. Not only that, but being broken by Christ eventually becomes joyful as our relationship with him grows. And over the years, we begin to understand that the securities of this world are pretty insecure. The calculable is really quite incalculable. But the rock, the cornerstone, never moves. Eternity is always eternity, and it has been won for us with costly grace. The girls of whom I spoke with regard to the pickles and the tuna salad had to grow. They had to put pride aside. They had to stop keeping score. They had to apologize and learn that an apology is not a weakness. And we accomplished all of that with the gospel, because that's how we grow. When the cost of grace that Christ won for you becomes real for you, everything else in this world looks cheap. That's what Paul was saying. My pride is nothing compared to Christ. The cost of the grace that Christ won for us becomes real when we're immersed in his word and when we receive his body and blood every week. That's when it becomes real. And that is the only way that faith grows. So if the tenants of the vineyard had welcomed the Son and rejoiced in his presence, their outcome would have been far different. Instead, they embraced the priorities and the values of this world, and the capstone crushed them. It's all about the pickles in the tuna salad of this life. We become easily distracted by meaningless and puny cares. Your job is a gift from God. If he takes it away, he'll give you another. Don't worry about it. Your health is a gift from God. And if he takes it away, look to him for strength and support. But don't worry about it. And those of you with children and grandchildren in school, and nieces and nephews, remind them that coaches and teachers are not God. And help them to understand that when they are presented with coaches and teachers with requirements that get between them and their service to God, remind them who they follow, who the capstone is. Because if you choose Jesus, you will suffer consequences. Little Johnny may not get to start. Little Susie may not get a ribbon. And adults may not get the promotion that they think they deserve. But remember who died for you, who was damned for you, so that you may live eternally with him and serve him. The gospel will feed you, and you will grow. And the amazing thing is that many of you have already understood. The day comes when you look back and wonder, why did I ever care about those stupid pickles in that tuna salad?